the Attorney General of Virginia, Jason Miyares, because as it is a victory, and you should be happy with how things came about here, apparently you're still under fire. They can't quit you, Mr. Attorney General. The ACLU is suing you over this. When will this end? As the governor said yesterday, it's time to get kids in the classroom and get all of us out of the courtroom.
Well, Larry, thanks for having me on. I think it's going to end when people kind of decide they're going to allow parents to be parents. And that's really what this battle has become. It is individuals that think they know best for their child. And so, we obviously had a big court victory in Loudoun County day before yesterday, confirming the governor's executive order. We obviously had the bill signing as well. So it was a great day for kids and for parents in Virginia. But it really just shows a complete divergent worldviews at a time when Democratic governors in Connecticut, in Delaware, in New Jersey, in Colorado are saying, you know what, let's get our kids back to normal life. We're going to lift the mask mandates for kids in school. The bill that the governor just signed passed on a party line vote in the House of Delegates. And it just shows they're kind of stuck in an ideological straitjacket they can't get themselves out of. And it's really unfortunate because our kids are suffering as a result.
Could you just give us a just real fast factual update on this status? Let's set ACLU aside for a moment. What is the current status of those various lawsuits filed by the Loudoun School Board, Fairfax School Board, I think, or Alexandria City as well, various Northern Virginia school boards? Are those dead in the water now? Do you want to play these out up to the Supreme Court just for the principle at play here?
Well, our team is actually having meetings right now to determine what is the next step. We obviously won a great ruling in Loudoun. We had the Arlington ruling. The Arlington ruling was very narrow. It was entirely based on the previous piece of legislation that they had pointed to. I thought it was an improper interpretation of the bill, but the new bill, Senate Bill 739, the governor just signed, supersedes that. So the Loudoun victory was particularly gratifying because the judge in that case ruled that not only did the governor have the right to adjust the previous executive orders for parents to make this decision, but said every child that had been suspended would have their academic record scrubbed from that suspension. It would not be part of their suspension, which was very gratifying and reward for the parents. We took nothing for granted. The governor obviously signed those executive orders on his first day in office, in which we've been vigorously defending and defending our kids and our parents. But then also we had a legislative fix as well that was making its way, and it was just kind of, I guess, destiny that we both had a large court victory and a bill signing on the first day, which is great. Now the next steps would be which school boards decide that they're going to defy the legislative fix, the change in the Code of Virginia that gives parents this decision-making power. It is much, much harder legal ground for them to try to stand up and say we're just going to defy law passed by both chambers and sign it to the governor. I'm not putting anything past it because we're waiting. I know that different school boards are having different meetings this week to make a determination how they're going to adjust. We're going to sit back. We're going to observe. ACLU filed a separate case in federal court, and those are going to be coming up soon. But right now, any school board that thinks they could defy change the law of Virginia, they're going to be hearing from our office very quickly.
Very good. Sticking with education, but kind of higher education, it sounds like earlier this week you unrolled or unveiled a proposal to actually help students who are mired in student debt. Can you talk about it and talk about why it's so important to you particularly, but also to Virginians with crippling student loan debt?
Well, college affordability has been a passion project for mine. I worked my way through college. I graduated with student loan debt and worked my way through James Madison University. And, what we saw with the Attorney General's office was collecting recovery fees north of 30% on student loan debt. And I thought, if you're an individual who's going through a family crisis, you've had a parent that has died, you're simply not able to stay in school, you shouldn't be having to pay back your student loan debt, and on top of that, paying a 30% surcharge to the Attorney General's office. So I ordered a policy change in office. We were going to cut those in half. I think that's smart. It does go to a larger issue, though, is that college affordability in Virginia the last couple of years has just gotten out of control. trying to rein that back in. I know that's an issue that's important to the governor as well. It's important to me. I graduated from JMU, and then I went to a public law school at William & Mary, and so making college affordable is critically important, and that's a huge issue for me personally. It's something I've been working on since I've been in public office.
We're speaking with Attorney General Jason Miyares, Commonwealth of Virginia. You also made a big point in your campaign, your successful campaign this November, to crack down on violent crime, human trafficking, some things that have plagued Virginia. You know, Virginia used to be seen as sort of the safe place to live around here, and it's gotten bad. And much of your campaign rhetoric had to do with some of these prosecutors, many of them here in Northern Virginia, who just ignore the law and refuse to prosecute some of these crimes, or they have such loose bail standards that some of these criminals, after they're arrested, they're right back on the street. Can you give us a status update on what you can do as Attorney General directly, or what you're doing to sponsor legislation down in Richmond?
Well, I mean, you're exactly right. We've had some progressive prosecutors that have a criminal first, the victim last mindset. We have a victim first mindset in our office as Attorney General. And part of it, you know, I was a prosecutor in Virginia Beach, and if you've been a prosecutor, part of the healing process for victims is that they have an understanding that the person that has brought them such unimaginable pain and anguish is going to basically see justice, that they are going to see justice, and they're not going to be in a position to harm other Virginians again. In fact, that's one of the ways you can convince them to testify, is this person isn't going to get back on the street. Well, we can't say that in today's new, quote, progressive Virginia. We saw with a parole board that was letting out cop killers, murderers, and rapists, some of them which had life sentences, getting back on the street. Sometimes the family wouldn't even notify until they heard it on the news. You have a bill that passed, the Democrats passed a bill last year that has a delayed enactment clause to July 1 of this year, which will release 15,000 inmates early. They decided they didn't want this to happen in an election year, so they did a delayed enactment. We're desperately trying to get part of that repealed. It's sitting right now in the state Senate. And so what you're saying is, you know, the vast majority of violent crime is done by repeat offenders. Not surprisingly, when you get repeat offenders back on the street, violent crime ticks up. And so I both champion bills that would rein in these early release of violent offenders. I've introduced a bill that would give me additional authority on prosecutors decide they don't want to do their job, particularly sexual violence against minors. I'll step in and do your job for you, because we all heard that horrific case in Fairfax County in which Toscana decided, over the objection of the family of the victim, to do a plea deal for a child rapist who was eligible for a life sentence, and instead he gave him a plea deal which would make him eligible for parole in 10 years.
It's despicable.
That's just stunning. It is despicable, and that's what we're trying to rein in.
Yep. All right, well, listen, we'll leave it there. Attorney General Jason Miyares. By the way, what's happened to your James Madison Dukes, for God's sake? It wasn't long ago that you actually won a game in the NCAA tournament, and now they're, barely at 500.
Well, you know what? There's always next season.
There's always. Well, you never know. The Colonial Athletic Tournament is known for a raucous bracket, so we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
It is 8:15. The James Madison Dukes.